He walks into the therapist's office like a man walking into a church. Heavy breathing, stiff shoulders, a stare mixed with rage and exhaustion. A mafia boss who collapses because of ducks in his pool. That paradox makes your brain freeze. How can a man who rules through fear over an entire city lose control over a few birds? And that's where the story begins. Tony Soprano is Machiavelli in a tracksuit. He doesn't read The Prince at night, he lives it. And if you want to understand how power really works, without illusions, without sugarcoating, listen closely. Machiavelli said something brutally simple. A ruler must not always be good. He must know how to be cruel when circumstances demand it and appear virtuous when it's useful. Tony is a practitioner of this philosophy. In Dr. Melfi's office, he shows weakness, hunts for the language to explain his panic attacks, tries to put words to what's tearing him apart inside. But once he walks out that door, the mask changes. He becomes cold, calculating. Kindness is no principle for him, it's a tool. That's the first lesson. Separate private life from public role. You can be human in private, but if you're playing the power game, you don't get the privilege of being good all the time. Otherwise, you'll be eaten alive. So what does Tony use to keep control? First, fear inside his own crew. He never lets them forget who's boss. He makes sure disobedience has visible consequences. And he doesn't do it for pleasure. He does it as maintenance of the system. When someone crosses the line, Tony punishes quickly, publicly, and decisively. Machiavelli called this cruelty well used. One big strike, so you don't have to keep cutting. A single execution to prevent 100 betrayals. Second, he projects strength outward. Tony knows any rival reads the climate inside his house. If there's weakness in the ranks, the sharks smell blood. That's why he constantly sends signals. We're organized, we're stable, we're dangerous. His reputation is armor. Watch the details in the show, the way he sits at a table, the silence he uses, the tone of his voice. In the world of power, silence itself is a weapon. You can say nothing and still deliver a message. Don't test me. That's another lesson. Status is a language, and you're speaking it with your body, whether you want to or not. And yet, why the panic attacks? Why does a man who terrifies others collapse from within? Because there are two kinds of control, outer and inner. Outer control is money, soldiers, networks, leverage. Inner control is your ability to stand firm through betrayal, uncertainty, loss, without collapsing. Machiavelli wrote about Fortuna, fortune as a wild feminine force that needs to be restrained. Tony tries to chain her down. He builds walls, raises the level of violence, shores up defenses. But when the ducks fly away, he crumbles. That scene is a metaphor. Everything he loves can leave. And the terror is that all the control in the world can't stop it. If you've ever led people, you know this feeling. You've got a grip on everything until suddenly you don't. Someone quits, someone betrays you, a deal collapses, and your whole order turns to sand. That's when you find out if you're truly Machiavellian or just pretending. Now, let's talk about family. Tony sits at dinner, smiling, playing the role of husband and father. But look at his eyes. He's measuring, calculating, who's on his side, who's doubting him, who might be a leak. That's why this show feels so real, because we've all done this at smaller stakes. Sitting at a table, reading faces, wondering who's with us and who's against us. The difference is scale. For us, the worst outcome is an argument. For Tony, it's death. But the mechanism is the same. This is why The Sopranos is a textbook on politics disguised as a crime drama. Machiavelli warned, never show weakness. People don't forgive weakness in leaders. Tony can't fully hide it. He cries, he confesses, he admits guilt to Melfi. He shows his family sides of him that a Machiavellian would keep locked away. Those cracks invite danger, and yet they make him human. That's the paradox that fuels the entire series. Can you be both man and ruler? Or does one role always destroy the other alive? Think about his relationship with Christopher. He's both mentor and executioner. He sees the younger man as a son, but also as a liability. Machiavelli wrote, "The hatred of those close to you is more dangerous than the hatred of enemies." Tony knows this. He tries to straddle both worlds, family and business, and ends up paying for both. That's a lesson for anyone in leadership. Don't let personal attachments blind you to political realities. Not because you're heartless, but because otherwise you'll be crushed. Look at how Tony manages narratives. He always tries to control the story about himself. He knows Machiavelli's point. People judge by appearances, not by truth. He gives one version to family, another to his crew, another to outsiders. That's deliberate. He creates layers of reality, and if anyone pierces too deep, he eliminates them. In today's world, we'd call this PR. Reputation management. In Tony's world, it's life or death, and the principle is exactly the same. But here's the fatal crack. When cruelty is driven by emotion rather than calculation, it backfires. Machiavelli warned rulers not to act from anger. Tony sometimes does. He lashes out, kills not because it's useful, but because he's furious. And in those moments, the predator shows weakness. He's no longer the master of fear. Fear is mastering him. That's when rivals wait to strike. You've probably seen it yourself, in workplaces, in politics. Leaders who punish out of rage burn their own credibility. Fear works only when it feels rational, not when it feels random. So what can we take from all this? Power is not an abstract. It's not a set of laws written in books. It's lived in emotions, in whispers, in moments of silence, in the stories people tell about you. Tony Soprano is a magnifying glass for these truths. He shows us that being both lion and fox, the brutal enforcer and the sly manipulator, is not optional, it's survival. Drop one and you die. And the question hangs, can you ever be both a loving father and a ruthless boss? Or does one role always eat the other alive? That's not just Tony's question, that's yours too. At home, at work, in your own life. Every time you choose kindness when you needed cruelty, or cruelty when you needed kindness, you live the same drama at smaller scale. Stay with me, because next we'll dive deeper into how Tony uses public punishments to keep his empire stable, and where he fatally miscalculates. And most importantly, what lessons you can take into your own life if you're willing to see the world without illusions. Picture the scene, a dark parking lot, two men talking, and suddenly one of them disappears from history. The body turns up later. Nobody asks questions because the message is clear. That's not just murder, it's communication. Power speaks through examples. Machiavelli said, "Cruelty must be swift and decisive so that mercy can follow." Tony understands. Every execution doubles as a press release. In a world without PR teams or news conferences, fear is the newswire. Here's the key insight. Power doesn't exist in reality, it exists in perception. It lives in people's heads. If they believe you're terrifying, they obey. If they think you're soft, they test limits. If they sense doubt, they plot. Real power is reputation, carefully managed. Tony engineers his reputation as deliberately as a politician engineers their campaign. He decides what stories will be told about him tomorrow. In business, you'd call it branding. In politics, it's image. In the mob, it's life or death. But there's a cost. When fear becomes the only tool, it becomes a threat to the system itself. People can't live forever under crushing tension. Their minds search for a release. Someone betrays, someone leaks, someone snaps. Machiavelli advised rulers to alternate cruelty with generosity to prevent rebellion. Tony does this instinctively. He punishes harshly, but then buys loyalty with gifts, favors, forgiveness. He knows when the spring is too tight and lets it loosen, just enough. Leadership is the art of calibrating that spring. Too loose? Chaos. Too tight? Explosion. Now think about Christopher's death. Was it cold calculation or raw emotion? That question matters, because cruelty that's rational reinforces authority. Cruelty born of rage undermines it. Machiavelli warned against passion-driven decisions. Rage exposes weakness. It shows enemies you've lost control. Tony crosses that line more than once. When he kills out of anger, not strategy, the myth of invulnerability cracks. Rivals see the opening. Even allies feel it. Fear becomes contaminated by doubt. You've seen this dynamic too, maybe not with guns, but in boardrooms. A boss who lashes out in anger, not in strategy, loses authority fast. People stop respecting the fear. Let's move back into Tony's home. Carmela, Meadow, AJ, his own family becomes another battlefield. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every glance is a test. He can't kill his kids when they challenge him. He can't silence his wife when she pushes. But he also can't reveal his true vulnerability. He's caught between roles. Machiavelli would say, even your household is a territory to rule. But modern men try to split lives. Be normal at home, ruthless at work. That split is what eats Tony alive, and it probably eats you too. You've been too soft at work and paid for it, or too harsh at home and damaged the bond. That's the same fracture, just scaled differently.
So what does Tony teach us? That power is psychological first, physical second. It's built on what people believe about you, not just what you do. He demonstrates the lion, the enforcer, who crushes disobedience. He also demonstrates the fox, the manipulator, who spins stories, deceives enemies, wears masks. That duality isn't optional. If you lean only on brute force, someone will outwit you. If you lean only on cunning, someone will crush you. You need both. That's Machiavelli's eternal point. Be lion and fox at once. And now let's zoom out to our world. Replace mobsters with CEOs, soldiers with employees, executions with layoffs. The rules don't change. Public punishment, control of narrative, carefully timed generosity, the balance of fear and favor, it's all the same playbook. Look at how companies fire people publicly to send signals. Look at how politicians leak stories to shape perception. Look at how leaders balance threats and promises. They're all reading from Machiavelli, whether they know it or not. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you refuse to play this game, you'll be played by it. Leaders who try to stay pure get devoured. You've seen it. The nice manager who never enforces rules gets disrespected and replaced. The soft-hearted politician who avoids hard choices gets chewed up. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Love is fickle. Fear endures. Tony Soprano knew this in his bones. It's why he ruled. But Tony also shows the tragedy. His humanity made him vulnerable. His need for love, his desire to be understood, his panic about losing family, these tore at his armor. That's the paradox. His cruelty kept his empire intact, but his tenderness rotted him from within. And that leaves us with the haunting question. Can you keep power and keep your soul? Or does one always consume the other? If this breakdown has made you think differently about power, subscribe now so you don't miss the next analysis. Drop a comment. Do you think a leader can truly be both kind and effective? Share this video with someone who still believes leadership is about fairy tales, because the truth is harsher. Machiavelli and Tony Soprano aren't relics. They're alive, moving among us. The only question is, are you just watching the game, or are you playing it? Imagine the dinner table again. Laughter, clinking glasses, stories flowing. But Tony's eyes keep scanning. He's calculating. Who's drifting? Who's loyal? Who might leak? That's the hidden machinery of power. Outwardly, it looks like family. Inwardly, it's politics. And here's the bitter truth. Every family, every team, every organization has this layer. Most people just pretend it isn't there. Tony never pretends. He knows love is fragile. Fear is reliable. That's why he holds both in his hands and squeezes when necessary.
This is why The Sopranos is more than television. It's philosophy in motion. Machiavelli's line, "A ruler must be both lion and fox," isn't poetry, it's anatomy. The lion, strength, decisive punishment, visible dominance. The fox, cunning, deception, reputation management. Tony embodies both. When he leans too far to one side, he suffers. When he balances both, he thrives. And this is exactly what leaders in every field face today. You may not run a mob, but you run a team, a company, a family. The stakes may differ, the mechanics don't. Notice how Tony times his punishments. He doesn't lash out every day. He saves them for moments when he needs to reassert control. That's not random, it's strategy. A single demonstration sends ripples through the system. People talk, they whisper, and the myth of invincibility strengthens. Modern companies do the same. One high-profile firing sends a message to thousands. Fear works faster than memos. But here's the part most people miss. Punishment only works when paired with reward. Tony alternates between terror and generosity. A brutal beating one day, a lavish gift the next. That rhythm keeps his crew hooked, fearful, but also dependent. Machiavelli advised rulers to cultivate both love and fear, but lean on fear when forced to choose. Tony does exactly that. And so do modern leaders, whether they admit it or not. Now let's return to his therapy sessions. Why is he there at all? Because the inner war is harder than the outer one. He can manage rivals, he can silence traitors, but he can't silence his own doubt. He wants to be understood. He wants to be more than a monster. And that desire, ironically, is what weakens him. Machiavelli would scoff. A ruler cannot afford to show weakness. Yet Tony does, and those cracks are where the collapse begins. Think of the duck scene again. The panic attack isn't about ducks. It's about the terror of losing what he loves. The empire, the family, the identity, all fragile, all slipping. That's the hidden cost of power. You spend your life building control, but inside you feel it evaporating. Leaders today feel it too. Behind the suits, the titles, the polished speeches, you can often see the same fear. I'm losing it. That's what makes Tony relatable. He's not just a mob boss, he's every leader, stripped bare. So what do we learn? First, fear is a stronger foundation than love, but only when wielded with calculation, not passion. Second, reputation is everything. Control the story, or the story controls you. Third, balance cruelty with generosity. Too much of either destroys. And finally, never forget the inner battle. External dominance means nothing if you implode from within. Tony Soprano teaches us that Machiavelli's world never ended. It's here, alive, in our offices, our politics, our homes. We can ignore it and be devoured, or face it and learn to play. The choice is yours. And now I'll leave you with a challenge. Look at your own life. Where are you trying too hard to be loved when you should be respected? Where are you punishing out of anger instead of strategy? Where are you failing to control the narrative about yourself? Ask these questions and you'll see Machiavelli staring back from the mirror. If this breakdown gave you a new lens on leadership and power, hit subscribe right now. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Can a leader ever be truly kind and effective, or is that just a comforting lie? And share this with someone who still thinks leadership is about being nice, because the truth is darker. Machiavelli knew it. Tony Soprano lived it. The only question is, will you watch the game or play it?